Growing up in the 1970s in Honduras, I was afraid of a song. Can you believe it? And that song was Schubert's Military March. Because every single time it was played on the radio, we knew that there was a new coup d'etat and a new military government. Perhaps this fear dates back to the 19th century, a time when one of the prevailing music styles was precisely military music. As previously mentioned, that's where most of our national anthems come from. In this topic, we look at some of the key music styles and social changes in Latin America during the 19th century, from music and the city to European migration and the birth of tango. The 19th century is key to understanding modern Latin American history because that's where our newly independent nations came into being. That period is so influential that most of our institutions and national symbols were created then. If you go to many cities and towns, you'll see a type of architecture that reflects a post-independence mentality. Neoclassical columns, big avenues, street names, open spaces, and so on. In other words, the 19th century never went away. Our music also reflects that mentality. The upheaval that came about after independence, deeply complex social changes, new ways to imagine urban spaces, new mentalities and aspirations. The cities also reflected these changes. Cities went from this to this. In other words, move away from the mentality of the hacienda and embrace a new type of architecture. New avenues, new parks, new places for social gathering appear. Most cities and towns in Latin America were built according to this pattern, developed by the Spanish crown in the 16th century. As you can see, the church and the presidential palace are at the center. That's where power is. And the further you live from the center, the less access you have to that power, but the more subjugated you are by it. You can still find this all over Latin America. And, in general terms, there is a music style for each social class. In the 19th century, the elite preferred European music, classical, religious, military. Until, as it happened in Argentina, the forbidden music of tango, of African origin, invaded the center. Or, as it happened in Mexico, bolero, which appeared among prostitutes, became the music of the middle class. In the 19th and early 20th centuries, the political landscape was dominated by dictatorships who didn't want to have anything to do with Spain and embrace Paris. In other words, they still wanted to be European, not indigenous or African, but white. Even in death, they wanted to be white. One way to be white was to attract white immigrants from Europe. In a country as vast as Argentina, the motto was, poblar es civilizar. To populate is to civilize. From 1895 to 1910, the population of Argentina increased from 4 million to almost 8 million. 43% were immigrants from countries like Germany, Italy, Spain, England, and Poland. Upon their arrival, they live in conventillos or tenements, a large boarding house with a central patio where the domestic life took place, washing, cooking, eating. There were rooms around it and a great many languages spoken. Most of the immigrants didn't go into the countryside as it happened in the United States. Half of them stayed in the city port of Buenos Aires and changed the landscape of the city forever. And that's how tango came into being. So far, we have looked at the key music styles and social changes in Latin America during the 19th century, from music and the city to European migration and the birth of tango. Next, we will look at the style of tango, its influences, origin, and characteristics.